The men's ice hockey team traveled to Lake Placid this weekend for a date with history.
And Pat, that wasn't the only team making history this weekend, as Trisha Fabry's team, women's basketball team, looked for its first ever postseason win.
Plus, we talk about the future of the women's ice hockey team after its remarkable season. Keep it locked. This is Bobcat Breakdown. Welcome to Bobcat Breakdown. I'm Pat Pitts, and he's the one, the only Rob Ciambra. Rob, how you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm great. I'm happy to be here.
Are you ready to talk some men's ice hockey?
I'm extremely ready.
All right.
Well, that men's ice hockey team looked for its first ever ECAC title this past weekend in Lake Placid. Bobcats took the first and last games of a 3-game set against Cornell here in Hamden. Then they took the trek up to the Herb Brooks Arena in Lake Placid, New York, where they defeated the Big Green of Dartmouth 3-1 in the championship. Quinnipiac trounced Harvard 4-1, but it came with a price. That brings us to our first point. How big was the injury to junior forward Sam Annis?
Well, Rob, it's huge because, he's really been a facilitator of this offense the entire season. I mean, just look at the stats. He leads the Bobcats in every single category: points, goals, assists, you name it. So when you are the team leader in those stats, you are the focal point of the offense, and that's what your team needs going into, tournament games, playoff games. And it's huge, but they have a lot of depth. This Quinnipiac hockey team has so much depth that they can have this injury right now against RIT, with players like the Clifton brothers, Travis St. Dennis, even, the freshmen, Luke Shiplow, Scott Davidson, and even Craig Martin got into the mix this weekend, So it's huge, but they can spare this game right now with him injured. It's just when they get to the next round, that's where they're going to struggle.
I agree with you, Pat. It's a very tough loss, but they had the 5-minute power play to start the second period. They took advantage of that, and they looked good the rest of the game without Sam. And you mentioned Craig Martin, first collegiate goal. He stepped up big. All the freshmen this season have had a great season for Rand Pecknold. And I think the Bobcats, like you said, they definitely can survive without Sam. It was tough last year in the North Dakota game, but this year, they're not traveling out to North Dakota. They're going to Albany. They're facing RIT in the first game. They could do that. I think they could take care of the Tigers easily. Then they got if they advance, they got the next game. It's either going to be UMass or Yale. But I think the Bobcats can do it. Like you said, they got the depth. They got St. Dennis. Both Cliftons have been scoring. Gartig's been strong in
Connor
net.
Clifton had one of the best weekends of his whole career this weekend.
Scored the first goal against Dartmouth.
Absolutely.
He had a great weekend.
Yeah, and that's really what you need if you're Rand Pecknold going forward in the playoffs. Sam Annis has been your lead guy, as we've said, but you have guys that you can go back on with the Clifton, St. Dennis, all these guys. So it's not that big of a deal now, but then once they get to that next round where they have to play either the Bulldogs or UMass Lowell, they're going to struggle.
Yeah, definitely. They're going to need him. Sam Annis, obviously, there's no doubt that he's an important player for this team, but they do need him healthy. He's still a vital player, still their leading point scorer with 48 points. They're going to need him to play. So as soon as they get him back, it's still better for them. It could only benefit them, but they're not at a total loss without him.
Definitely. You were up at Lake Placid this weekend. What did you take away from the weekend itself, not only the championship game, but the game against Dartmouth as well?
Well, they played a near full 60-minute effort, and that was something we've talked about in the past, this Bobcats team. Obviously, it's hard to say that about any hockey team, but this was the first time this season I've seen the Bobcats from the drop of the puck to start the game to the final buzzer play extremely well and look confident for the entirety of the 60 minutes. In both games, not just the Dartmouth game, but the Harvard game as well. They went into that game determined to win, and they came out with the victory. They raised their first Whitelaw Cup. And, I talked about it before, a few days ago. Against RIT, yeah, this is a team from the Atlantic division. They used to be in a team that's sort of beneath them. But they can't, they can't risk not showing up to this game, especially because it's the NCAA tournament, like we saw them do back in January against Dartmouth, Maine, and Northeastern. You look at Northeastern too; they're in the tournament now after an incredible run. The Bobcats cannot sleep on any teams, let alone RIT.
No, absolutely not. We saw that earlier in the season when they were undefeated. We saw them kind of step off the pedal a little bit, tying games that they should have won. We saw BU come to Hamden for the first time ever, and that was the biggest game of the season at that point. You know, a BU Hockey East team coming to Connecticut, playing the #1 team in the country at that time. It's huge, the atmosphere. And you get out, Sam Annis scores the first goal. You're like, oh, Bobcats have this. But then they took the foot right off the pedal like they did all season. And then what happens? BU scores 3 unanswered goals, and they lose. They pick up their first loss. And the dynamic in that press conference afterwards was not a like, we should have won that game. It was like, yeah, we expected to lose. You can't have that, you know, going into the playoffs now. I mean, granted, they're not going to have that mentality going now. But what I'm saying is, RIT never played them before. You said they're a lesser opponent. You know, you can't let off the pedal saying, oh, first round, RIT, we've never played them before, we can step off. No, it's pedal to the metal now. It is the NCAA tournament. You want to go to Tampa, and the way you're going to do that is just full throttle, 100%, 110% actually, the whole way.
And Pat, I saw this a little bit against Harvard too. The Bobcats had the lead, but Harvard, you know, a quick answer, 8 seconds. I think it was after their third goal. Ryan Donato came in, topped the slot, absolute sniper shot to keep Harvard in it and sort of just to keep Quinnipiac on their toes. You know, they really just, it was sort of a message saying, that was a message for the Bobcats, but saying, you know, hey, don't back off because this is a tough Harvard team that's not going to give up.
Absolutely, and I mentioned that you know, the Bobcats are going on to the NCAA tournament. I got my bracket right here. We'll look at the East bracket. Where do you see Quinnipiac going? How far do you see them going?
Well, I think the Bobcats can win the East Regional. They can definitely beat Rochester. They could play Yale or UMass again. UMass Lowell has had a pretty good season. You know, they lost in the Hockey East Championship game to a determined Northeast team, so this is a team looking for revenge. But the Bobcats have defeated UMass Lowell in the past. They have a great squad up there, the Riverhawks, but I think the Bobcats, it's going to be a pretty evenly matched game. They take on the Riverhawks. Same thing with Yale. You know, these are two teams the Bobcats know they can beat, and I think they can come away with a victory in both those games.
I disagree with you about them beating UMass. I think
Really?
they can beat, they can win the East region. I do believe that with the talent they have. But they got to beat Yale. If Yale moves on, they can win that game. They've dominated Yale all year. They have more depth than Yale, better goal scorers, and right now Michael Gartic is a hotter goaltender than Alex Lyon. They play UMass. They're going up against Hobie Baker nominee Kevin Boyle, that big UMass, you know, defenders. There's a lot of parallels between them and Cornell. But UMass has a little more talent, you know, stick-wise than Cornell, and I think that will create some trouble for the Bobcats. That's why I actually have them losing in the East region to UMass, and UMass going to Tampa.
You bring some good points for that. You know, UMass, like I said, they are a strong team. They're a big team. They're a tough team. Kevin Boyle, fantastic season for him in net for the Riverhawks. But I think the Bobcats got it. I got to disagree with you on that.
Do you think if they have it because Sam Annis comes back from this injury, or regardless of Sam Annis, do you think they have it still?
Well, you got me there. I think they can still. It's going to be a good game regardless with Sam Annis in or out of the lineup. You know, it's going to be tough. I think the Bobcats could pull it off without Annis in the lineup, but it certainly would be, like I said, it would benefit them to have Annis in the lineup. I think with Annis in the lineup, it's almost a sure thing. But without Annis, I think you see a very close game and possibly even an overtime game.
Absolutely. Rob and I talk about Cass Turner's ice hockey team and its future after a successful season.
And we put it on the pine to talk about the women's basketball team and its historical postseason. Don't go anywhere. Bobcat Breakdown is back
Welcome
right
to
after
A
this.
Sheer Sensation, North Haven's premier cosmetology service, located at 140 Washington Avenue, minutes from Hamden. We offer an array of services, from basic cuts and colors to lash extensions and formaldehyde-free keratin treatments. We also provide hair chalk and styling for men. When you spend $60, your Q card will get you 10% off. Call us at 203-239-6477 to make your next appointment at A Sheer Sensation.
Welcome to Joya Spa and Salon in Hamden. Whether you want a new look or the perfect wedding day hair, come to us for complete hair and nail care, cuts, styles, updos, extensions, and beautiful dimensional hair color, as well as manis and pedis, acrylics, gels, and shellac. Treat yourself to a facial, a peel, or microdermabrasion. Relax with a variety of massage techniques, including Swedish and hot stone massage. Joya Spa and Salon. Call today.
I could really go for a Ray and Mike sub right now.
Come to Ray and Mike's and try our Philly chicken and cheese for just over $4. Giant cheesesteak subs and mouth-watering boar's head sandwiches for as low as $4.75. Q-Cash accepted just a mile down the road on Whitney, here at Ray and Mike's.
Welcome back to Bobcat Breakdown. I'm Rob Ciambra. He's Pat Pitts.
Yes, Rob. And the women's ice hockey team faced Clarkson in the NCAA tournament. They defeated the Golden Knights in the ECAC championship game, but Clarkson got its revenge by beating the Bobcats 1-0. Renata Fast put in the lone goal of the game 10 seconds into the first period. The Bobcats could not net a goal and took an early exit from the tourney. Rob, what can we take from their just remarkable season as a whole?
Well, Pat, in my 4 years covering this team, I've seen nothing but improvement, and that's, again, what I saw this year. Their first ECAC regular season championship, their first ECAC postseason championship, it was against Clarkson, a 1-0 game on home ice. Just exactly a week later, NCAA tournament, another home game against Clarkson. They host their first NCAA tournament game. Improvement for the Bobcats. The difference between the two games itself, the Bobcat, it was just the puck luck, essentially. The Bobcats didn't have it in the second game. Clarkson didn't have it in the first game. They had some opportunities, both teams, in both the games. It was just, a tale of like that first goal early on in the first period. The season itself, the Bobcats, like I said, a lot of improvement. They're recruiting a lot of better players. Melissa Samoskevich, her freshman year, absolutely outstanding. Joining TT Cianfrano on this team, and Emma Woods. That top line of Woods, Cianfrano,
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
So fun to watch, am I right?
Extremely fun to
so
watch.
fun.
And then you look at Sid Rossman in goal. She's got another year. It's going to be a good year for, similar to how Chelsea Layden had her final 2 years here. I think it's going to be a good year next season for the Bobcats. I could see them definitely back at the top of the ECAC, definitely in the top 10, USCHO, all that, and definitely back in the NCAA tournament.
I actually could not agree more. This team is just so much improvement over the years. Cass Turner steps into that role, a lot of questioning there, and she just leads this Bobcat squad to a 30-win season as her first year. That's incredible. And she has players like TT Cianfrano, Sid Rossman, Emma Woods, Melissa Samoskevich. That first line, so fun to watch. And then you also have, players like Lindsay West and all that, playing well. And it's just so fun to watch them play. And, I wouldn't say the loss to Clarkson was, kind of something to hang your head about, because that was just what you said, puck luck. Watching that game, all you saw was they had chances, but they just weren't going in. It's just a quick goal by Fast, 10 seconds into the game. I think that was the fastest goal in women's NCAA history. The luck there it was not on the Bobcat side. And then them in the offensive zone trying to score, they just could not get anything past Tiley. And, some days you win some games you lose some. It just wasn't their day. Nothing to hang their head about. They have an incredible future going forward. And even, I say, next year, they make the NCAA tournament and even go to the championship, because they have so much potential and talent.
And another quick note, Pat, is Cass Turner's coaching staff. Her assistant coaches renewed this year, Amanda Mazzotta, former Cornell women's ice hockey goalie, also coached with Turner for one of the national Canadian teams. And then you got Eddie Ardito over from Yale. He's a great recruiter. The future is very bright for this team, just looking ahead to this next coming season.
Absolutely. And we're going to switch it up from the ice to the Pine. We're going to talk about the women's basketball team. They've had a remarkable season. They struggled. They went 0-3 to start the season, and then turned it around and ended up taking the MAC title, going on to the MAC tournament in Albany, but losing in the semifinal game due to a tough injury by senior captain Maria Napolitano. Rob, how huge was that injury for them in the MAC tournament?
I mean, it's the equivalent of devastating to the men's ice hockey team losing Sam Annis. Maybe she's not the best player for the team, but she's a senior. She does get the points when they're needed. She's a clutch player, and that's just a tough loss on the court. Sure, she's still in the locker room cheering her team on, but that presence off the court is tough to bounce back from. The team, it was evident the team struggled from it. They still looked good. No doubt about that. They looked good, but there was definitely a piece missing in Napolitano. It's a huge loss for them.
Absolutely, and she was the leading scorer, the whole season. But then, you have freshmen like McClure and Stromae really leading the squad in just everything on the floor, rebounds, points, assists, you name it, kind of being the vocal points. But then Napolitano was that senior leadership, to rally the troops and saying that when they were down, say, hey, we can do this. Let's go and let's come back from this, deficit. And they didn't have that going forward. I mean, you put in Ali Martucci, who is a great spark plug off the bench, a great six-man, coming off the bench, spark plug, really when they need that point or need that, three-pointer or need that, hard foul to get the and one, she'll do it. She's there. But she was a redshirt junior. And then she goes in to perform the role of Napolitano in the MAC tournament and then into the WNIT. That's tough on anyone, to fill that huge role. And I think she did a good job with it. She did the best job she could, but, it's just too late in the season to make that transition.
Yeah, I agree. Martucci did a good job. It's very tough to fill a role that Napolitano basically built for herself. And, the team obviously did their best. They still, like I said, they looked like still an elite basketball team, but it just wasn't enough. Like I said, the missing piece was, it was evident. But, a lot of props to this team for how far they went this season, and they still, got to their first national tournament.
And they were led by freshmen. Keep that in mind.
Oh, yeah.
Aaron McClure and Stromene, this future is going to be bright. I see them making tournaments, for the next 3 years. It's going to be so fun to see them play. And my only critique about Paula Stromene is that she is a little too aggressive. I mean, you love to see aggression on the floor. You can't teach that as a coach or anyone. You cannot teach that. But it brings her a little into trouble. She fouled out of 11 games this season. Even one last week in the WNIT against Temple when they needed her the most, down 4, late in the game. That's Stromene time.
Yeah.
That's her time to shine. Get the ball down low, do a little spin move, a little hook shot right there. That's her game, and you can't do that if you're on the bench.
Yeah.
And she can shoot the 3 as well. McClure can't do that, and McClure's got a problem as well. Not as much as Stromene, but going forward, looking into the future, she needs to control that, and once she does, future is extremely bright.
Yeah, 100% agree with you, Pat. Just a little discipline for Stromene. Great player, but if she's out at the end of the game when they need her the most, what good does it do? You need the aggression there. You're right. She's a great player, but fouling out of games, that's not helping this team out at all.
And nothing to take away from her. She, unbelievable player this
Exactly.
whole season. Multiple Rookie of the Week, MAC Rookie of the Week awards, her and McClure. But the aggression just needs to be toned down a bit because then that aggression could lead to, uncalled for fouls. Maybe a technical here and there for, screaming something off when, the ref just heard you a little bit. You can't have that late in the game because then that puts your team into trouble and then that hurts you as well. And you don't need that going forward, especially when the future's so bright for this team, with players like Carly Fabry, Brittany Johnson, McClure and Stromene. This team is going to go far in the future. If they become more disciplined, they're going to be extremely, extremely great. The next few
Definitely,
years.
I agree. The freshman class this year and some of the underclassmen this season, just a fantastic season for them. The future's definitely bright. Just a little discipline, not just for Stromene, but a few other players as well. But the future's very bright. Look good. I expect them back in the national tournament next season.
Me too. Well, that does it for us on Bobcat Breakdown.
Right, you are, my friend. Don't forget to check out our websites at www.q30television.com and at www.theqbsn.com.
And don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Q30Sports and at QBSN.
And check out the latest edition of QBSN, the magazine. You can see it online at theqbsn.com or pick up a copy anywhere on campus.
Hey, Rob, I got a nice article in there about the women's ice hockey pregame rituals. Definitely an article you should check out.
I read it. It was fantastic.
Thank you, Rob. And that's all we have here on Bobcat Breakdown. He's Rob Ciambra. I'm Pat Pitts. Have a good night and a pleasant tomorrow, Bobcat Nation.